Major League Baseball trade deadline. Wow, what a crazy one it was for all SoCal sports. I'm the host of Sideline Sports Podcast, Alex Naveja, where if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast, the source of all SoCal sports. And before we start off with today's episode, I just want to again say thank you so much to everybody who has supported Sideline Sports Podcast with the 1-year anniversary that happened 2 weeks ago with our surprise guest, Jorge Carrin, that came on. It was definitely a pleasure to have him on there. And you know what, guys? We are around the corner from 200 subscribers. So make sure to give the thumbs up and hit the subscription button down below because we've got a great guest on the podcast today. And it is former Lake Elsinore, which is the single A team for the San Diego Padres. And now he is the low A affiliate for the Seattle Mariners, and Dominic Lorenz. Dominic, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And if I haven't told you already, congratulations on being the West Virginia Power #2 broadcaster with David Kahn. And you know what, man? I'm really liking the little facial hair. I mean, you got it up to right here. You used to have it just here. Now it's right here. I like it.
That's right. Yeah. Thanks for having me on the podcast, Alex. It's a great time to be talking baseball, even during this COVID pandemic era that we're living in right now. So it's good to have trade deadline, good to have baseball, good to have all sports coming back. But yes, when I saw you, it's been a couple of months since I've seen you a little bit, but yes, it was tighter to the face, but I said, you know what, if minor league baseball is not playing, we got to grow it a little bit. So it's almost like a rally beard to get minor league baseball back and to get sports back to what they were before the COVID pandemic, with fans, with music, with everything that we love about sports. So this is in honor of bringing sports back, and luckily it's looking pretty good today. I can't complain.
It looks pretty lined up. It looks pretty clean. So
I had to get it right for the podcast, man. You can't come on here on a negative note. You got to come out positive.
Hey, you know what? On a positive note, you definitely have to start that movement, Dominic. You got to start with, hey, if you want minor league baseball back, if you want all the teams back, hey, make sure to grow the facial hair a little longer like that. Maybe that's a movement you could start.
Hey, maybe it's a good remedy. Just go to the East Coast, live in West Virginia for a couple months, grow the beard out, come back to California, and have all your California friends and family be like, what is that? I don't know what a beard is. I don't know if you should keep it, but hey, we're bringing sports back every day with the beard.
Well, I mean, I can tell you right now, Dom, I can't grow out a beard like that. But you know what? You know who's looking pretty good right now? I have to say, you're the team you've been working for a while, the San Diego Padres. What a trade deadline it was for them. They almost look like a complete different team, especially when you look at the pitching and all that. So, you know what? Let's get started with some of those moves that the Padres made. Now, the first move that they did make, and they really did address, was that bullpen problem that they had. And, you know, they acquired the Kansas City Royals closer in TREVOR Rosenthal, and they traded away outfield prospect in Edward Olivares, and also a player to be named later. I mean, what are your thoughts on this move right now, Dom?
I think it's a great move. And, you know, once we get through all the trades, I have a little note about Padres GM AJ Preller. I was able to meet him one time in Lake Elsinore, and he has a very distinctive mindset when it comes to the GM position, not only with the San Diego Padres, but I think just a theory of how GMs should be in Major League Baseball, and we'll get to that. I think kind of at the end, it'll be a nice wrap up to all this. But with TREVOR Rosenthal in mind, we saw him burst on the scene when he was with the St. Louis Cardinals, and he was a dominant force at the back end of that bullpen. Had a couple down years, had some injuries, and was really coming into his own yet again with the Kansas City Royals. And I think it's a great move for the Padres. They needed to have that back end of the bullpen so strong. We saw it last year with Kirby Yates, and with Yates now not really pitching for the rest of this year, he's got arm ailments. I think TREVOR Rosenthal is the perfect person to kind of come in a short 60-game season with the playoff push and become that closer. And I think in exchange, looking at it from the flip side, from the Kansas City Royals, who are a rebuilding franchise back from their World Series days with Moustakas and Hosmer and the whole crew in Kansas City at that time, Edward Olivares is a beautiful piece of that puzzle. I saw him in 2018 with the Storm. He's a versatile outfielder, can play all three outfield positions. I'd say his best is in left field. And thinking of, Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City, I'm not saying he's going to, play their 162 games, half home, half away.
Right.
I think either way, he's just a good piece. I would put him in left field. Again, GM myself, GM Dominic over here. I'd put him in left field, but he can either be a leadoff hitter or batting 7, 8, or 9 in the batting order. He has a little bit of pop. He's not a 40 homer guy. I would say maybe 10 would be his max, but he hits for average, gets doubles, steals bases, and an athletic guy in the outfield. And that's something that Kansas City will need right now as they rebuild.
I'm actually a personal fan of that move as well that the Padres made. I mean, the last episode when we had George Terrace, the host of On the Black podcast, he also said, you know what, the bullpen is something that needs to be addressed if the Padres want to make a serious run. So I actually like this move for TREVOR ROSENTHAL. I think it's going from it's been a while since he's been on a contender. So now being with the Padres and being with a contending team, I think that's really going to help him out on the flip side. So now the next move to now address some offense is the Mitch Moreland acquisition from the Boston Red Sox. But now the Padres did have to give up some pretty valuable prospects here for infielder Hudson Potts and outfielder Jason Rosario. Thoughts on that move?
Absolutely. I think when this deal came in, the Mitch Moreland move from Boston, we knew part one of this was Boston is beginning to tear down. You know, they were World Series champions. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I'm going to bring this up. It's a sore subject, but beating the Dodgers a couple years back. I know, Alex, you love your Dodgers, but, you know, they were in their prime. They had J.D. Martinez, who they had just gotten a few years back. He was providing a pop. And the Boston Red Sox had a great pitching staff as well that helped them beat the Dodgers. And Mitch Moreland was a huge part of that. So you see now how the Boston Red Sox being in last place in the AL East has really turned their mindset. So Mitch Moreland to the Padres, first base, DH. I think he pairs well not only with the Padres, but with Eric Hosmer at first base. Hosmer signing that big major contract. I believe that was 3 seasons ago now. He was really that first piece that A.J. Preller really put in place to get the Padres in the right mindset of winning. And Moreland and Hosmer can team up one day. One plays first base, the other plays DH, especially, again, 60-game season, DH across the board for AL and National League. And I think he puts the ball in play. He's not flashy. He's not Manny Machado. He's not Fernando Tatis. He's Mitch Moreland. I'm going to go in, put my head down, get to work, slap the ball, get a couple doubles, get an RBI single, and he'll just easily, under the radar, have a 2-for-3 day with 3 RBIs. And that's somebody that the Padres can use anywhere in the order. I see him probably like maybe 5 through 7 kind of supporting the Hosmers, the Machados, the Will Myers of the lineup. But as you said, in return, Jason Rosario, Hudson Potts, 2 terrific prospects. I saw Jason Rosario this past season, 2019, and he's a terrific outfielder. Along the lines of Edward Olivares, can play anywhere in the outfield. What I love about him, high energy. He always has a smile on his face. He is ready to play day in and day out. So Jason Rosario, speed guy. If you want him, give him a little sign, say slap a little bunt down the third baseline on a 2-2 pitch. Good, he'll do it. He'll go get you an infield single and get the rally going with 2 outs. So I love Jason Rosario's game. And on the upside, even more of an upside that Boston's getting in return, Hudson Potts. He plays left side of the infield, shortstop, third base. He has terrific pop in his bat. The one I would say tick to his game that he's still working on and is doing a better job of is the swings and misses. He does have a high strikeout rate, but it complements at the same time by getting the home runs and a lot of doubles. So I think he's continually working. He's a young kid. Lower the strikeouts, get more contact on the baseball, even if it's a single, even if it's a flyout or a ground out. Just put the ball in play and give yourself a chance. But I do like both those prospects going to Boston for Mitch Moreland.
Mitch Moreland is going to be a nice addition, and having 2 veteran infielders are there in first base in Hosmer and in Mitch Moreland. So now let's get to another one in a team that you're very familiar with as well. The Jason Castro move going to the Padres, and in return, the Angels did get Eduardo Reyes in that move there.
You know, with that, I think first things first, I had to give a little love to my Angels with a little red polo today. We're not having a great season. We're trying our best. We got Mike Trout, so I gotta show a little bit of love there. But Jason Castro, he had signed with the Angels this past offseason on just a very simplistic one-year deal. So it was kind of a test year with Joe Maddon's first year. He likes building catchers like he did in Chicago and Tampa Bay. So Jason Castro was that veteran piece that could really come into his own, look at a pitching staff and say, okay, I'm going to catch you. Yes, I can hit maybe a few home runs, have maybe just a slide above 200 average, but I'm here more so for the pitchers and to keep them in line. And he did a really good job of that. The Angels, for the, I guess you could say, month and a half of the season, the first 30-plus games of the season that Castro was with the Angels, he did steer a lot of the Angels' young pitchers in the right direction. Griffith Canning, Patrick Sandoval, even the veterans like Andrew Heaney and the resurgence of Dylan Bundy, he did a really good job of keeping those guys in check. So I think for him to go over to the Padres, who has a young, versatile pitching staff that includes Chris Paddock, Dinelson Lamet, and two guys that are, I would say, in the wings and probably maybe a half a season, a full season away, Luis Patino, who has made a splash in the majors, and then the guy that we'll get to probably in a little bit, Mackenzie Gore, their number one prospect. So Jason Castro, he is, again, only on that one-year deal, so he's only going to be there for a couple months. If they re-sign him, great. If not, the rest of the MLB can go see if they want Castro. But I think right now, for the win-now mentality, perfect pickup. And in return, Gerardo Reyes, great pitching prospect, A-plus velocity. His fastball can touch 97 to 100, has a breaking ball, has a slider. That slider, literally, I consider it a 12-6 slider. It's coming at you. And then it's at that last minute, it'll tail away on a right-handed batter and come in on that left-handed batter. So 26 innings last year, 38 strikeouts. Young, as I mentioned, young, versatile arm. The only thing he needs to work on is his command, like anybody else. And any pitcher, command is always the first thing that goes. Yes, if you have Tommy John surgery, the speed is the first thing that goes. But for most pitchers, it's command. And I think for a young kid, 27 years old, I think Angels pitching coach Mickey Callaway will enjoy working with Reyes. He got optioned to their Long Beach alternative site right now, so getting used to the Angel organization, working with different catchers. He has a shot of making the bullpen, and again, with the Angels right now being in last place, are going to try everything just to get as many players involved as possible. I think maybe the last week, 2 to 3 weeks of the season, you may see Reyes come in out of the bullpen and get some reps with the Angels. But a good move, I think, overall, and a nice even trade for a catcher that was on the only year of his contract, and Gerardo Reyes, who has a couple years of control with the minor league money.
I think Reyes will be a very nice +1 for the Angels pitching. I mean, I know the Angels are really trying to bolster up that pitching, whether it's starting, rotation, or even the bullpen. So now let's get to the bigger, bulkier trades now. Dom, I know this one's going to be pretty fun to talk about now. So now this is where we get to like the bundles. Now, the Padres made the big deal with the Seattle Mariners. Padres get Austin Nola, catcher, right-handed pitcher Austin Adams, and then right-handed pitcher Dan Altavilla. And the Padres have to give up a bolster of minor leaguers. And now I know you've actually worked with a couple of these guys. So right-handed pitcher Andres Munoz, infielder Ty France, outfielder Taylor Trammell, and catcher in Luis Torrens.
Yeah, it's a big haul. 4 players, you get 3. But I expect nothing less from A.J. Preller, Padres GM, and Seattle Mariners GM Jerry Dipoto. They absolutely love these haul deals. I remember joyfully from the days that Jerry Dipoto was the general manager of the Angels. They love these 3-for-1 deals or 7 for 3, or, let's just throw the whole mixed bag of prospects in one bag. You pick what you want and we'll call it a deal. So that's kind of what this deal was a little bit. The Padres, again, were looking for catching. They had 4 major needs going into the trade deadline: starting pitching, catching, relief pitching, and a utility bat. So far, Mitch Moreland, utility bat, check. They got Trevor Rosenthal, covers the bullpen, check. Now you're getting the combination of Nola, Adams, and Altavilla, so 2 bullpen guys and a catcher, and Austin Nola, brother of Aaron Nola from the Philadelphia Phillies. He was a converted catcher. He played a little bit in the infield, a little bit of the outfield in his minor league days and came into his own as a catcher. This was his first year with the Mariners. And for a quote-unquote rookie campaign as a catcher, put the ball in play, was batting over 300, and he did as much as he could with the Seattle Mariners. I think the Mariners, again, still in that rebuild phase, have a lot of great prospects to choose from, and that I think maybe in 3 to 4 seasons, the Seattle Mariners could be kind of like the Padres, a contender in that AL West division. So Nola, perfect time to move him. They swap him out specifically with Luis Torrens. I saw Torrens in Lake Elsinore in 2018. Great guy, puts the bat to ball, doubles, singles, he gets on base. Defensively as a catcher, he does everything you want in a catcher. He calls a great game. Defensively, he's sound. The only thing, and again, this was going back to 2018. At the time, a year and a half has passed. He played last year with AA Amarillo Sod Poodles. His arm, so throwing out runners, was a little bit below average than what most catchers would maybe be at his age at that time. But from what I saw in spring training, summer camp 2.0, or whatever terminology you want to call it, before the 60-game season started again.
Right.
And then for, a few moments, a little splash with the San Diego Padres for a couple games this season, it looked much improved. And I think that was one of the things he really wanted to work on in the offseason going into the 2019 season. So he's worked on that. I think it's a good move for the Mariners and the Padres to make that simplistic swap. But then you get deeper. And the guy I really want to focus on in this deal is the outfielder that the Padres gave to the Mariners in Taylor Trammell. Year and a half ago, Padres make a deal, a 3-team deal with Cincinnati Reds and the Cleveland Indians. And you're thinking, Taylor Trammell, who's this? Well, at the time, he was the Cincinnati Reds' top 3 prospect. But when you step back, look at the scope, what was the bigger portion of that deal? That 3-team deal included Trevor Bauer going from Cleveland to Cincinnati, and Yasiel Puig as well in the Cincinnati-Cleveland swap. And Taylor Trammell was just a small piece at that time that the Padres really wanted. When they traded him over, he went straight to AA Amarillo. He quickly became a top 5 prospect, and at the time, he was the future of the Padres outfield. He has a left-handed swing, has power, doubles, speed. He's a 5-tool player. That's what every GM, that's a GM's dream right there. So for me, seeing his name in this trade was a little bit shocking, but I think if Seattle, and I can't be directly in the mind of Jerry Dipoto, but I'm thinking Jerry Dipoto's thinking, we have a young catcher who has plenty of years of control under his belt. You've seen what he can do in a short sample. Imagine what he can do in that big old sample size of a 162-game season or throughout the longevity of his 3-4-year minor league contract. So we want Taylor Trammell. You knew they weren't going to give up Mackenzie Gore or Luis Patino or their other young pitching prospect, Ryan Weathers, who probably would have started the year in the Cal League with the Lake Elsinore Storm. Those 3 guys, in my opinion, in the Padres system are the untouchable pitchers. And Seattle, do they need pitching? Yes. Do they hold more of an offensive/defensive outfield in a higher regard? Yes. The Mariners have Julio Rodriguez, who was with the Power last year. He's a terrific guy. They have Jared Kelenic, who's at AA, AAA level, about a year and a half away. You add Taylor Trammell in the mix in that year and a half. I'd say within the next 2 to 3 years, all 3 of those guys, left, center, right, there's your Seattle Mariners outfield.
Exciting things coming in for Seattle in the next couple of years. And even with the Padres making this instant move, getting Austin Nola and, really addressing in that relief pitching market there. But now let's get to the big one that broke yesterday in the morning.
This is the big one. This is the big one. You wake up on the West Coast at 8:30 in the morning and your phone's buzzing. And all Preller had to do was get up for a 5 a.m. workout, have a sip of coffee, and boom, he made the big trade fast and furious.
That's exactly how it went down for me. I was woken up by just my phone buzzing a lot because of the MLB FA group chat. But here it is, folks. Mike Clevenger goes to the Padres along with Greg Allen, and I think there was a player to be named attached to there as well. I know Dom can
correct player to be named later or cash considerations. Knowing AJ Preller is probably going to be a player, they'll probably take care of that portion. My guess would be after the season, which is typically when GMs do that player to be named later, unless there's somebody that they really want to grab before the Rule 5 draft.
So that's the big part of it. Now, here's even bigger. The Padres give to the Cleveland Indians. Right-handed pitcher Cal Quantrill, left-handed pitcher Joey Cantillo, catcher Austin Hedges, shortstop Gabriel Arias, shortstop and second baseman Owen Miller, and outfielder Josh Naylor.
That is, we just talked about the Mariners Padres trade to be a haul, 4 for 3. You come back, and right now it's 2 players for Cleveland that they sent over plus 1, so 3 players. And like you said, Quantrill, Naylor, Hedges, Arias, Joey Cantillo, and Owen Miller. That is a huge haul. And again, I already mentioned Gore, Patino, Ryan Weathers, those 3 untouchable. And AJ Preller was able to make all of these deals without a single one of them leaving. So he kept his top 5 prospects intact, even the top 10 truly intact. But when you look at this, Cal Quantrill, he had pitched well for the Padres this year. He came out of the bullpen, made a couple spot starts, saw him in 2017. And at the time, he had just gotten drafted out of Stanford, was the number 2 prospect in the system. He is going to develop extremely well. I would say he's maybe a 4 or 5 starter at the back end of your rotation, potentially a reliever. I would keep him in that 4 to 5 slot. I think he can get you 5+ 6 innings a game. So Cal Quantrill, nice guy for the Cleveland Indians. Josh Naylor, power bat, doubles machine. Majority plays first base when he was with the Storm in 2017. I know with the Eric Hosmer acquisition a couple years ago for the Padres, they moved him to the outfield, and then he became a DH. So it'll be interesting to see what the Cleveland Indians now do with Naylor. Austin Hedges will immediately be a catcher for the Cleveland Indians right now. He's a major league ready catcher, and I think he will enjoy playing catch with the likes of Shane Bieber and, Carrasco and a couple other pitchers in Cleveland. Gabriel Arias, out of, like I said, Taylor Trammell was the guy I focused on in the last trade. Gabriel Arias, he's the one I really want to focus on in this trade. He was the number 7 prospect for the Padres. He started the year last year at the very ripe age of 19 years old. So wow. before he can, hits the double decade mark, he is playing shortstop, A-ball level, 3 levels away from the majors. And his defensive glove at shortstop might even be better than where Fernando Tatis was at his age. And if Fernando Tatis went from low A Fort Wayne Tin Caps to double A, skipped triple A, and went right to the majors. So he made the bunny hop through the system. And at his age, when he was with Fort Wayne at 18, 19 years old, in comparison to the plays that Gabriel Arias is making at shortstop, I think the upside of Gabriel Arias defensively is a little bit higher than Fernando Tatis Jr. And that's not saying Tatis Jr. is, to the wayside. The Padres need to release him. No. Tatis is a once-in-a-generational player. He reminds me of Mike Trout when he was coming up the rookie years in the first couple of seasons. But Arias has a bat, has pop. Again, another doubles machine kind of player because of his speed. He immediately becomes a top 10 prospect in the Cleveland Indians organization. And I was talking to some Padres friends that I had from the Lake Elsinore Storm days and throughout, and also with some Cleveland Indians fans that I know. And my theory in this, because of the shortened season 2020, give Gabriel Arias 2021 to have a full year of minor league baseball, probably at the AA or even AAA level, depending on how Cleveland feels about him. The biggest question for Cleveland is Francisco Lindor. Great all-star caliber shortstop. He's at the end of his contract right now. Will Cleveland pay him? That's the big question. If they do, Arias will have to make the move to second base, and he's completely comfortable with that. He can play second, short, and third. So wherever you want to put him, good for you. If Lindor does not re-sign and becomes a free agent, the door is now wide open for Gabriel Arias to be that shortstop for the Cleveland Indians. I would say no earlier than 2022.
Wow, it's definitely going to be a fun couple of weeks just to see Clevinger be a Padre and now be an ace of the Padres. And just looking at that starting rotation for the Padres, it looks very scary. And now the Indians making some serious moves, and that farm system looking even better. And some of these major league ready guys definitely looking really good. Now, another team that you're really familiar with, Dom, are the Angels. And I know they made a couple of moves, and they were a team that was actually a headline for the trade deadline. And I mean, with the Angels, they had a couple of guys that they put on the block. They had David Fletcher. That was a huge name that was getting tossed around a couple of times. You had Dylan Bundy. You had Jason Castro. You had even Tommy La Stella that was getting tossed around too. So speaking of Tommy La Stella, he was the first guy to go for the Angels, and he would go to the Oakland A's in exchange for Franklin Barreto.
Yeah, with that move, kind of switching gears from a team that's really having success right now in the San Diego Padres to a team that's not having success, my Angels, I would say it's a different mindset. Typically with these trade deadlines, typically on July 31st, it's really the opposite. The Padres are always the ones sitting back, and the Angels are looking to excel their team and make that playoff push, almost like the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Houston Astros. But this year it was the Padres, the Marlins, the Mets. So you saw that difference. And with the Angels, like you mentioned, with Tommy La Stella going to Oakland and Franklin Barreto coming to the Angels, I don't want to be harsh to Billy Epler and the Angels. I saw this as a loss for the Angels. Tommy La Stella, a utility infielder, plays first, second, short, third. He had a splash in left field last year when Justin Upton had a toe injury and David Fletcher was batting extremely well. And you got Franklin Barreto, who, no knock against Barreto, is a top 30 prospect in the Oakland A's organization, had great numbers in AA and AAA with the Las Vegas Aviators, as we mentioned. And he really did not come into his own when promoted to the major league level. Was batting 7 games, didn't have a single hit. I'm not saying that 7-game stretch should define a person's career or season. No, everybody goes through ups and down streaks, whatever. But the reason why I see the Angels making this move is because we're cellar dwellers right now in the AL West. Even with the expanded playoffs, there's hope. They're not mathematically out of the race yet, but the clock is extremely ticking very fast. And Tommy La Stella, 1 year left on his contract. He's going to be a free agent at the end of this year. Oakland is a playoff contender and potentially a World Series contender. And second base was their biggest hole. They had Tony Kemp, who was their starting second baseman. He is a speed utility guy, not an everyday second baseman. Robbie Grossman, they moved to the outfield, who used to play infield, but he's really made a home now in left field in Oakland. And Franklin Barreto, who hadn't been doing much. So that was their one need. And Tommy La Stella foot that bill. Yes, you're trading him to a division rival, but luckily the Angels do not have to face La Stella the rest of the regular season.
This was one trade that you and I talked about, and this was a trade that the Angels did fall short of. They could have gotten at least maybe 2, maybe even get 3 players out of this trade because of how well Tommy La Stella was doing for the Angels. This is one of their more consistent defensive players. You look at the offensive numbers as well, and I really think Tommy La Stella is a player that the Angels could have gotten a lot out of. So one trade we already discussed about earlier, the Padres and the Angels, that Jason Castro move and the Gerardo Reyes one. So we'll go ahead and skip that one. Then the one that minutes after the deadline. You know how it goes. Trade deadline, just because it's 1 o'clock, it doesn't mean it stops. If anything,
never means it's over. Never means it's over.
It's just a rush of trades. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. There was one with the Cincinnati Reds. Angels sending over that talented outfielder, Brian Goodwin. But they do get they get a pretty good arm out of it for left-hander PACKY, NAUGHTON, and also a player to be named later, or even Cash.
I think with this move, and as we mentioned, the craziness of the trade deadline, I thought, honestly, 60-game season, expanded playoffs, I was in the mindset that a lot of teams were going to pass on this year's trade deadline, maybe a couple teams making a couple moves. I didn't think it was going to be as big as it was, and I think you can thank Padres GM AJ Preller for that. I think he really ignited the fire amongst a lot of teams, especially the teams that are still battling for those playoff spots, as we mentioned, that don't normally compete at the trade deadline. The Marlins, the Mets, those teams to be exact. So to see the Angels at the last second send veteran outfielder, utility outfielder Brian Goodwin to Cincinnati, great move for Cincinnati. They have a great team. They had Trevor Bauer, starting rotation is strong. The outfield, strong. They had Mike Moustakas. He got hurt. I don't believe he's going to be playing the rest of the year unless they make it deep into the playoffs. But again, he's an infielder. They still have Joey Votto, who's a great veteran presence at first base / DH. He's a power bat, great move. But Goodwin provides great defense. And I think for Cincinnati, from what I read, they want him to play in right field. And I think at Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, that's a perfect place for him to play. And that's where he was majority playing for the Angels this season before Joe Adell got promoted and has been playing more so in right field. But Brian Goodwin hits for average, doubles, has a little bit of pop. Not a 40 home run hitter. He's not a Mike Trout or a Miguel Cabrera or Fernando Tatis Jr. He'll hit, 5 to 12 home runs, give you a little pop, RBI, situational hitter. So I like that move for Cincinnati. And this, out of the 3 moves that the Angels made, I think this was their big win at the trade deadline. They get Packy Naughton from Virginia Tech, young kid, was with the AA level for the Cincinnati Reds last year at the Chattanooga Lookouts, and he represented the Cincinnati Reds as their minor league pitcher of the year. So he has great numbers, left-handed pitcher, and after seeing some video on him, and the podcast viewers can kind of make the comparisons of their own, I see a lot in his mechanics for those of the Padres, conveniently enough, in Joey Lucchesi. High arms, bringing it down, and high leg kick. That combination that really gets almost like a Clayton Kershaw. Kershaw brings the arms up, he brings them down, and then he goes into that high leg kick that generates that velocity. So I think Packy does a really good job of bringing that to the table. He's got the fastball, he's got the slider, he's got the changeup. The biggest thing that he worked on from 18 to 19 was situational pitching. He's a very cerebral pitcher. So when guys get on base, he gets into his head a lot. But he worked out of jams more so in 2019 than he did in 2018. So to me, that is a good positive sign of young development. Because when you're in Major League Baseball, let's say you got the bases loaded and 0 outs, and you have a guy like Fernando Tatis step into the plate. You don't want to go absent-minded, throw him a get-me-over fastball, and he crushes it 440 feet, and right off the bat, 4 batters into the ballgame, you're down 4-0. So I think for Packy to come in, if we were playing minor league baseball right now, I'd say he'd be at that AA, AAA level. Give him next year to fully be in minor league baseball. And by 2022, he could be a serious contender to be a part of that Angels rotation. And don't forget, the Angels drafted in June with the number 10 pick, Reed Detmers from Louisville. And as soon as they drafted him, the Angels were exceptionally high on him, thinking that he could potentially be in that starting rotation this year. And if this year doesn't happen, we know for sure April of next year, Detmers will be in the rotation. So you have Naughton and Detmers, 2 young guys from great collegiate organizations in Louisville and Virginia Tech, respectively, between the 2 players. So good young pitching continues for the Angels. Now the key is, can they pitch in Major League Baseball? That's the key. You have Griffith Canning, who had finally a great outing 2 days ago against Seattle, 8 innings, allowing just 1 run. Patrick Sandoval, who's still working out the kinks a little bit. This is only his 2nd full season in Major League Baseball. Tremendous upside on him. So right there, those 4 guys are the future of the Angels pitching staff. All the Angels need now is about 1 or 2 legitimate aces. And I think you can feel a little bit better starting rotation-wise for the Angels.
I think the Angels do have a bright future when it comes to their starting rotation. I mean, the last guy that they did pick up over on the draft this year was local boy, Long Beach State native in Adam Seminaris. And I think he's going to have a bright future in that team as well. And I really do have high hopes for the Angels coming forward, because they just went ham on pitching, on just trying to really address the pitching needs that they have. Now we're talking
The biggest thing for the Angels, I think, and again, we can talk about this a little bit because, we talked about how the Padres are doing so well, and it's a little unusual. In a good way, it's unusual. And the Angels struggling is unusual in a weird way as well. Angels owner Artie Moreno and general manager Billy Epler, they went all in offensively. They signed Mike Trout to a lifetime contract. And again, I am not complaining about Mike Trout signing a lifetime contract. He is once in a generation, best player in baseball right now. Of course you had to build around that. You got Shohei Ohtani, who factors into that pitching staff a little bit right now. We thought he was going to be pitching this season. Forearm issues. They shut him down for the year. And as an Angel fan, just a fan, not even thinking internally about baseball, As a fan, I'm a little bit worried for Shohei Ohtani because now you have the Tommy John, now you're having forearm issues. To me, if there's one more sort of setback, do we call it quits, move him to first base or the outfield, or, strong first base potentially after next year and Pujols becomes a free agent? So that rotation is a little different. You go all in, sign Anthony Rendon to a 7-year deal, which I think is a great move. The Angels haven't had a legitimate third baseman since 2002, Troy Glaus in the World Series championship team. So, and then you put good pieces around. Pujols, no. Is he the Pujols of the past, batting .330? No, but he gets you home runs and he's a veteran presence. Justin Upton, same thing. When Justin Upton's really hot, he's great. If he's really cold, you don't want him on your team. So it's one of those high risk, high reward type things. And then, as you mentioned before, Alex, David Fletcher, he is the combination of two players that I loved growing up. He is Sean Figgins and David Eckstein molded into one. He is a great speed guy, great defensively. And then he also gives you a glimpse of Vladimir Guerrero that he'll hit a ball 3 feet above his head for a base hit. So you have guys like that batting wise that are really good when they're on. To me, it's the pitching staff. Offense comes and goes in baseball. Some days you see a good pitcher, some days you don't. That's okay. Pitching needs to be there 24/7. And I think with the Angels starting rotation and bullpen, they have pieces, but it's about getting them hot all at the right time. But I've said this for years. The Angels do need to go out and get now 2 aces to have at the front of the rotation. That's a need for the Angels this offseason.
Well, we'll be on the lookout for that this offseason, Dom. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see what the Angels will get done. So now another move that did happen after the 1 p.m. deadline, and somewhat of a shocking one as well, because nobody really even saw this happening. Nobody really even talked about it or anything, was the Dodgers trading with the Toronto Blue Jays, Ross Stripling going up north, and now the Dodgers getting 2 players to be named later.
Yeah, that was an intriguing move to me because leading up to the deadline, I would say about 30 to 45 minutes before the deadline ended, you heard rumors that the Dodgers called the Texas Rangers inquiring about Lance Lynn. And for a moment, I'm thinking, okay, this is where the Dodgers make their move, because do the Dodgers, truthfully, and as a Dodger fan, you would know, do they really need to make a move? No, they have a terrific team around them, offensively, pitching. They have drastically improved that bullpen from what it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Getting Gratterall has been a really fine piece of their bullpen. Kenley Jansen pitching to what we know Kenley Jansen can pitch like. So do they really need to make a move? No. But in my head, the team down the 5 freeway from them, the San Diego Padres, made all these moves. So the Dodgers aren't going to sit back and say, okay, Padres, you make your move. We'll be ready for you. The Dodgers want to retaliate and say, we're still number 1. We're going to go get Lance Lynn. I thought that was the move. That wasn't the move. And as you mentioned, Ross Stripling for 2 players to be named later. I know the Angels in the offseason had a trade in place to get Ross Stripling and Jock Peterson in return for Luis Rengifo and a pitching player to be named later. They did say it was a pitcher. But that deal fell through. Artie Moreno didn't want to wait since the Dodgers were dragging their feet, according to him, in that mind. I would have been fine with Ross Stripling and Jock Peterson. I think that would have been fine. But the Dodgers, I think the real reason that I read and can see from now that the move happened, I could step back and see at least the last 2 or 3 weeks for the Dodgers, you have 3 young pitchers that have dominated. Dustin May, Julio Urias, and the best one of them all, I think, Tony Gonsolin. I saw Tony Gonsolin when he was with the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes. Actually, I believe I saw all 3 of those guys with the Quakes at one point or another. And Dustin May, Mr. Carrot Top, as we like to call him a little bit, with that big hair.
Yeah, it's huge.
And I think he has his slider is on another planet. That slider is on another planet for Dustin May. He can make a living just on that one pitch. If he was a closer, gone. It would almost be like Mariano Rivera with the cutter. That slider is that devastating. Julio Urias, young guy, he's been in the Dodgers organization for 5+ seasons now. A lot of people don't know that. I saw him back in 2016 pitch his first game with the Quakes. I was just there as a fan. I was there. I had nothing to do. I wanted to go see a baseball game. Quakes against the Bakersfield Blaze. They don't even exist anymore.
Yeah, that's an old one.
And he tossed 5 2/3 innings, allowed 2 runs on 4 hits, a very simplistic day, but a good debut at the high A level. And then Tony Gonsolin. The guy comes out, pitched a couple games last year, was at AAA most of the year, and I wrote it down here. He goes 4 starts, a 0.51 ERA as a rookie.
Oh, my God.
Who do you think you are coming into the Dodgers organization who already has Clayton Kershaw, who is having a resurgent year, missed the first week with the back, which I've always said is his only downfall in his career. Injury-wise, he's never had TJ, knock on wood. He's never had any other arm ailments. It's only been his back. So for his back to be healthy at his age right now, and I say it as if 32 is a very old age, but for him to have, good numbers at his age right now is great. And Walker Buehler, who had a terrific year last year, not having the greatest 2020 season, but he's doing enough to still complement Kershaw, May, Urias, and Gonsolin. And I think with Gonsolin's push into the rotation, I think it kind of knocked Ross Stripling out of the running. And the Dodgers said they didn't feel it was right to move Ross Stripling in the bullpen and in favor of Gonsolin in the rotation. I agree. In a 60-game playoff push where it's a win-now mentality for every single team, I probably would have held on to Stripling, especially in the playoffs. You never know what can happen. And with 3 young pitchers, I'm not saying they're going to falter, but the postseason is a different breed. And for young rookies, you either rise to the occasion or you fall to the occasion. Hopefully for Dodger fans, they rise to the occasion, and I think they will. They have dynamic pitching arsenals that will get them there. But Ross Stripling was going to be a free agent, so they said, let's trade him now. Let's get some sort of value for him so we don't lose him in free agency and end up getting nothing for him at the end of the day.
I wasn't too thrilled about this trade, and I know you know that because we were discussing about it, and I didn't like the trade just because of how good Ross Stripling was doing, and he was actually one of the more stable pitchers for the Dodgers, and I really like that curveball he has. That curveball is just really nasty. It reminds you, it's just like a right-handed Kershaw. It's just 12-6. It's absolutely beautiful. That's his put-away pitch, and it's really successful for him. But when you do mention the fact that the Dodgers needed to trade him away to try to get some value out of him because of how well he was pitching, I do like that idea. The Dodgers do have some youngsters, like you said, that they need to make space for because these guys are the future of the Dodgers. I mean, you look at their starting rotation, it's going to look pretty nasty, and I really like the future for all 3 of them. All 3 of them are going to have a really fun future, so I'm really curious to see how that's going to go.
I agree, and I think that's when you get to the trade deadline, and a lot of those last-second deals happen. I think the GMs sit back with the days leading up to the deadline, and they're all waiting who's going to make the first move. This year, it was the TREVOR Rosenthal deal for the Padres. That was the first one that tipped the ship, and then the trade started funneling in. When you look at that, then GMs, the scouting department, everybody looks at who they're going to field calls. The Angels fielded calls with David Fletcher, Dylan Bundy, and Andrelton Simmons. None of those 3 guys moved. But for example, Andrelton Simmons, he's going to be a free agent after this season. So I think if the Angels didn't think that they were going to re-sign him after the season in the offseason, they probably would have sent him away to get some pieces back. And I think those are the last-minute decisions that the GMs think about. They're saying, okay, who in our division made moves, and how can we make our team better? Do we have anybody that's a free agent that we could get some value for that we know for sure we probably won't sign in the offseason? So we don't know those 2 players to be named later. I think if we did know those 2 players, we could make a better call on if it was a good deal or a bad deal, or even a 50-50 split deal. We don't know that yet. I think once we get those players to be named later, we can see that in the bigger light.
I'll definitely keep you in mind, Dom. Once we find out about those players to be named later, I will definitely send you a text and we'll see if it was well worth it. But let's take a quick break, Dom. When we come back, we're going to talk about where these trades are going to go for the Padres. Where do we see the Padres going at the end of the year before playoffs start and all of that? So let's go ahead and take a quick one. We'll step aside. But if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast, the source of all SoCal sports.
Hi, my name's Stephen Leonardi. I'm the commissioner of the Major League Baseball Fan Association, and you are watching the Sideline Sports Podcast.
Welcome back to Sideline Sports Podcast. Again, I'm the host, Alex Naveca, and with me again is number 2 broadcaster for the Low A affiliate of the Seattle Mariners from the West Virginia Power himself, Dominic Lorenz, also former voice of the single A team for the San Diego Padres, the Lake Elsinore Storm. First half, we were talking all about all of the SoCal sports news, everything that the Padres, the Angels, and the Dodgers did yesterday in the trade deadline. And if you're a Padres fan, you are partying it up right now in SoCal, the most south that you can go in Southern California. So now, if you guys didn't even get a chance to see the Padres game last night on ESPN against the Colorado Rockies, they won it 6-0. A very good pitching day on the mound, and also a offensive day also for the Pods. I mean, you got to expect that from them. Dom, I know you watched the game, but listen to this lineup for all of the viewers. You have Grisham, Tatis, Machado, Hosmer, Moreland, Myers, Cronenworth, Nola, and Profar. Couple moves. They had Moreland in first, and they had Cronenworth in second, and then they had Profar in left. So they usually had Cronenworth there at first. So it's nice to see that versatility from the Padres, from Cronenworth, and I'm just liking what Cronenworth is doing. And that guy just looks so fundamentally sound. And with Moreland being there yesterday as well on the lineup along with Nola, where do you see the Padres going this year? How far do you see this lineup taking them?
This lineup's going to take them, I think, as far as they want to be taken towards. I think it's them against – I wouldn't completely say 100% it's them against the world because, again, there are teams like the Dodgers within their division and in the National League that would give them a run for their money. But I think the only person that's going to beat the Padres is themselves at this point, at least getting into the playoffs. They're in second place right now behind the Dodgers. They're in with the expanded playoffs, the top 2 teams in every division, plus a couple wild card teams get in. So they're in the playoff race. I think with players like you said, Moreland, Cronenworth, and Profar, their versatility is always key. What's the best ability? Availability. And they're making it work right now. But they can go as far, if I had to really break it down, as far as the pitching takes them. Again, I mentioned it in the first segment of the show. Offense comes and goes, but pitching stays forever. It's almost like football. Offense comes and goes, but defense wins championships, at least in my eyes. And I think with Chris Paddock, Dinelson Lamet, 2 guys that had been there before the Mike Clevenger move, were already strong at holding down that front end of the rotation. You slide Mike Clevenger, so it's now So let's say you go best of 5 series in the first 3 games. Clevenger, Paddock, Lamet. I'd say that's a very strong trio right there. So if those 3 guys can do exceptionally well, they will take that team into the playoffs and farther. Offense got to be clicking on all cylinders. Machado, Tatis, Hosmer, those guys have the offensive strength to carry the lineup. And I think you don't have to worry about it after these moves. 1 through 9, it has now become a balanced lineup for the San Diego Padres. And like you said, the surprises of Cronenworth, Profar, who's been batting exceptionally well the last week and a half to 2 weeks, have really put this team in a good direction that AJ Preller could have said, okay, we're going to start building. We're in a win now mentality, and we're going to go as far as we want to go. Playoffs, I think, yes. After that, I think the only team really in the National League that could stand in their way is the Dodgers and maybe the Chicago Cubs.
I think those are the 2 teams that could definitely come in interference with the San Diego Padres as well. I think that offense is going to take them deep, man. I mean, just if I'm a pitcher and I'm looking at that lineup that I just mentioned to you, hitters 1 through 9, I am scared right about now. I mean, there's no guy in that lineup that's an easy out or really thinking like, man, there's not one guy that I don't want to face. Everybody is just scary. Everybody's just dangerous right now for the Padres. And those runs are definitely going to win them ball games as well. Like you say, the pitching, I'm liking this Padres offense right now. And you know what? I'm scared right now. I'm scared of anybody that's going to face them.
It's a nice time. It's a nice time. And I completely blanked on this name, but another trade that the Padres had made in the offseason when they acquired Zach Davies from the Milwaukee Brewers. He has been a surprise source of pitching, I guess you could say, at that back end of the rotation. 4-2 record right now, an ERA 2.57. He has come into his own since coming over from Milwaukee. So add him to the mix. Let's say he's your 4 guy. So now Clevenger, Paddock, Lamet, Davies in a 4-man rotation going into the playoffs, because you get extra days off. It's, more teams go 4-man rotation in the playoffs than 5-man rotation. So I think that rotation is steady. When I say, and as I mentioned before, the Padres are the only team standing in their way of making the playoffs, I think that's true once they get into the playoffs. The only thing I think that could be, not a detriment, but I think something they might have to overcome is that youth and the inexperience of the postseason. You do have guys there. Hosmer, a World Series champion, he has playoff experience. Manny Machado, he was with the Dodgers. He had a splash of the first couple rounds of the playoffs of the Baltimore Orioles in his day. There's another guy. Clevenger was with in the World Series against the Cubs a couple of years ago. So you have a couple guys here and there that can tell the guys, this is what playoff baseball is about. Be ready. Tatis has not been in the playoffs before. I'm not saying he's going to fall on his face or be a godsend. You just don't know. First time in the playoffs is a different breed for any player, but at least they have a couple cornerstone players, Hosmer, Machado, Clevenger, that can really tell this team, hey, this is what the playoff is like. Be prepared, but at the same time, stick to the mindset we've had since day one.
It's going to be fun watching the Friars these next 30 games, and I'm just going to say, keep an eye on them. And when it's Dodgers and Padres, I really hope you guys are putting in the time to watch that game, because it's just going to be so much fun. So the final question to end the podcast episode, Dom, is when are we expecting the Angels to contend? Like when do you see the Angels starting to be at the top of the AL West with all of these trades going on and with these prospects really maneuvering their way up to the majors?
It's always hard to say. I think as a fan of the Angels, I want to compete now. I want to be in first place because I want my Angels to do well, of course. Looking from a different, vantage point of a baseball sense, we signed Mike Trout to a lifetime contract. He's there. Rendon's there for the next 6 years after this year. Ohtani's there. So you have 3 main offensive guys that will be there for years to come. And I think with getting manager Joe Maddon this past offseason, that tells me the Angels want to win. They're not trying to rebuild and kind of do what the Padres are doing and have a 5-year plan and maybe in 2025 we reach the playoffs. No, the Angels have never been a rebuild now, start from scratch and do it again. They're always a mini rebuild and a mini it's in some very small pieces. It's very hard to describe. But my hope is that next year the Angels can compete. You see right now after the Oakland A's have really come into their own, and they're going to be a formidable piece in the AL West. The Seattle Mariners, as mentioned before, I think are 2 to 3 years out. And the Texas Rangers are kind of in that same mode as the Mariners, maybe 2 to 3 years from really competing, a couple pieces away. And the Houston Astros, at some point, that team is going to have to break down. George Springer's going to be a free agent. He's going to want money. They have Correa, Altuve, Reddick, Gurriel, and Zach Greinke, and Justin Verlander. The names go on. So they can't pay for all these guys forever. So at a point, the Astros are going to have to break down at a certain point. So the Angels have to find that wiggle room between Seattle getting better and Houston declining, that they have to really jump at that opportunity. Back in the early 2000s and up to 2004, between 2002 and 2014, the Angels were always in the hunt for the division, in the wild card, making playoffs. So it's really different now since 2014 to see 5-6 consecutive seasons of no playoffs for the Angels. Biggest thing for me, as I said before, they need at least 2 aces at the front of that pitching staff. No doubt about it. Pitching has been the struggle point of the Angels in recent years. Offense comes and goes. I think they can make do with what they have offensively. If you score 10 runs a game, that's great. But if your pitching staff gives up 11, you'll lose 11 to 10. So I think you strong up, get that formidable 1-2 punch at the front end of the rotation, maybe get one strong piece of the bullpen in the back end, and I think you're raring to go. I think the Angels are there. They're not in rebuild mode. I think they're in a prime spot. I think with Joe Madden having a 4-year deal with the Angels, he's gonna get his Joe Madden touch like he did with the Chicago Cubs in 2016.
I couldn't have agreed more. I like the Joe Madden addition in the offseason. And I really think just give Angels maybe 2-3 years once you see these farm guys make their way up to the majors. And once they see all of these really good arms come into the major league level, and maybe even really for the next time for this offseason, address the pitching and address and bolstering up the bullpen, because bullpen wins you games, wins you championships as well. And even getting 2 aces and then getting really just like, if you're going to reconstruct anything, reconstruct that whole entire starting rotation if you're the Angels, Dom. But you know what? That's all the time we have left here on Sideline Sports Podcast. Thank you so much to everybody who has tuned into this one. Make sure to give this episode a thumbs up. Also, hit the subscribe button down below. We are around the corner from 200 subscribers, guys. We are only going up from here. And of course, thank you so much to the number 2 broadcaster for the low A affiliate of the Seattle Mariners in West Virginia, Powers, Dominic Lorenz, good colleague of mine. Again, Dom, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate being on the podcast today. Good to talk about baseball. Good to have sports back, and hopefully soon enough back in the booth for some minor league baseball in West Virginia or anywhere else. We'll see where baseball takes us in 2021.
We'll definitely be on the lookout for you, Dom, to be inside of the press box over in West Virginia next coming season. And if you guys want to stay up to date with everything that Dom is doing, I will make sure to put his social media handles down in the description below so you guys can follow him and catch all of his crazy Twitter takes that he puts out there. And of course, him going nuts for Padres baseball. And of course, still waiting for his Angels to make some moves and be up on the AL West. So I'm Alex Naveja signing off, and thank you so much to everybody who has tuned in, where if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast, the source of all your SoCal sports. And be on the lookout for a potential episode number 2 this week. Of course, we have Lakers and Clippers also trying to duke it out in the NBA playoffs. Make sure to be on the lookout for episode number 2. Still looking for that surprise guest, folks. So be on the lookout for that. Have a good one, everybody, and make sure to stay safe.